Okay, so I wanted today's practice to be about um, strength and stability. So I get a lot of requests all the time for hip openers. I think it's something that most, if not all of us, love. I know I do. It just feels really good. We get tight hips from all the sitting we do. But it's important that we balance that out with some strengthening and working on stability to support the hips. So that's going to be our focus today. And as always, I just want to remind you guys to listen to your bodies, know when something doesn't feel right, that you can come out of it. You don't have to do every pose. I try to offer modifications as best I can. You might intuitively know a way that you can modify some of the poses. So just always listen to your body and be kind to yourself. Okay. So I want to start standing. So we're just going to start by finding some movement and lubricating the joints as well as working on that stability piece. Okay. So come into the asana with the feet hip width apart. Just find a stable standing pose here. So root through big toe mounds, little toe mounds, both sides of the heels. Reach up through the crown of your head. Draw navel to spine to help engage the core. Spread out the toes. Okay. And you can either let the arms rest by your sides or bring your hands to your hips. Okay. We're going to just start kind of from the base up. We're going to bring some movement into our toes. So pick up one foot and just kind of do some circles with the toes, maybe tucked under for a little bit, or maybe not tucked under, and moving in one direction and eventually changing that direction, just waking up the toes a little bit. Our feet are so important. This is the base of our stability whenever we're standing. And then we'll switch feet. Again, just kind of doing these circles. Hopefully you can see my feet. Making sure you're switching directions and just finding what feels good. Does it feel better to have the toes tucked under? Or is it better to kind of be more on the ball of your foot? As long as you're working the toes, the flanges. And then grounding through both feet again. Navel to spine, reaching up through the crown of the head, finding that stability, because then we're going to lift. Let's lift the left leg. Okay, and we're going to do some ankle circles here. I'm just moving the foot in one direction. And then reverse it. Good. And then trying to stay stable all through the body except below this knee. We're just going to do some circles like a pendulum, just rotating at the knee. If you need to stabilize yourself with the help of a wall or a chair, that's of course an option if it's close by. So make sure you reverse the direction. And then we're going to move into the hip. This is a little trickier on the balance. We're just going to make these big hip circles. So keep that core engaged. Try to stay as stable as possible through the standing leg. Reverse the direction. And then release that foot down. We'll switch sides. So bringing your weight to your left foot without sinking into it. And then lifting the right leg, so keeping the hips level. And we'll just start with those ankle circles. And reverse the direction. And then moving to the knee. So just swiveling the lower leg in a circle, trying to stay stable everywhere else, and reverse the direction. And then we'll get into the hips. So big circle with that right hip. Again, this is a little trickier on the balance. Obviously, the standing leg is working pretty hard. Reverse the direction. And then we'll bring that foot back down, shake it out a little bit. Okay, now bring the feet together and bend the knees. Bring your hands to your knees. We're gonna make circles here with the knees. If there's any pain in the knees and this doesn't feel right, of course, you can skip this part. And then reverse the direction. And then coming up to standing, stepping the feet hip width apart again. A little bit of bend in the knees. We're just gonna swivel the hips side to side. Getting a little sassy here in the hips. And then we're gonna go forward and back. So tilting the pelvis forward and back. And then making these big circles with the hips. So kind of like you're hula hooping, keeping those knees bent, just making these big circles and then reversing the direction. And then come to standing. Good. And then reach the arms up and overhead. And then release the arms back down. We're gonna bring fingertips to our shoulders. So bending at the elbows here. And we're just gonna swivel side to side so the chest moves, but try to keep your hips stable. So the lower body isn't moving, it's just the upper body. A little bit of twisting. Good. And then reach your hands forward, opening your palms. We're just gonna wiggle the fingers, kind of like you're playing a piano. And then take the wrists into it too. Keep moving the fingers, but rotate the wrists at the same time. And then reverse the direction. This always actually makes my arms get a little tired. I know I'm working. Good, and release the arms down, shake them out a little bit. And then give yourself a big hug. So bring your hands to the shoulders. If that's not accessible, because maybe you have some shoulder pain or stiffness, you could grab for opposite elbow. Notice which arm is on top, and then keep your hands on your shoulders or on your elbows, and almost like you're pulling your shirt off. You're gonna lift your elbows towards the sky, and then the hands release. You cactus the arms as the shoulder blades draw down the back. And then we're gonna bring the other arm on top for another hug. And again, lift the elbows overhead and then release them. Draw the shoulder blades down the back. We'll do that a couple more times, alternating arms. This is a movement where my shoulders talk to me a lot. Maybe you're experiencing that too. There's a lot of crunching going on. And just again, just make sure that none of that involves pain. And you can always modify if it is a little bit painful and just bring hands to opposite elbow. Let's do that one more time. Good. And then we'll just do some shoulder rolls. You can feel the chest and torso moving with this too. And then reverse the direction. Okay. And then we're gonna lift our left arm out from the shoulder, flex the wrist, draw both shoulders down away from the ears. and then just drop right ear to right shoulder. So this should give you a nice stretch in the left side of the neck. And maybe you roll the chin down towards the chest and then back towards that right shoulder. So it's just a kind of quarter circle here if the movement feels good, or you can stay still with that neck stretch. And release the arm down, bring the head to center. We'll lift that right arm, flex the wrist, draw shoulders down away from the ears, gently drop left ear to left shoulder. And if movement calls to you, you can roll the chin towards chest and then back towards that left shoulder. Just finding that stretch in the right side of the neck. Staying stable through the rest of the body, standing strong, keeping the core engaged. And then release the right arm down, float the head back to center. Inhale, reach your arms up towards the sky. We're going to interlace the fingers, except for the pointer finger. So I don't know if you can see my hands. Hands are interlaced except the pointer finger. We're going to bend the knees gently, and we're going to draw these circles on the ceiling. Just kind of swiveling our torso in one direction, drawing these circles. Again, knees are softly bent, and then reverse the direction. Good. And then come back to standing tall, and then exhale, release the hands, and slowly start to fold forward. Coming into Uttanasana, standing forward fold. So you can take the hands wherever you'd like here. Maybe they support you by having your hands on the floor or even blocks. Or if you want to come into ragdoll, inviting a little deeper stretch, you can bring hands to opposite elbow crease, tucking the chin. Wherever you are, just make sure that your knees are at least in a micro bend, or you can bend the knees as much as you like. We just don't want to lock the knees. And just taking a few breaths here and taking a moment to notice where the weight is in your feet. So sometimes we have the tendency to either lean way into the toes or way back into the heels. Just see if you can find a place where the weight feels distributed evenly through the front and back of both feet. And then release the arms if they're not already. On an inhale, let's come to a half lift. And pausing here for a moment. So engage your inner thighs, ground the heels, pretend to drag the heels apart. Okay, that helps to bring that engagement to the inner thighs. And for me, also creates a little space, a little freedom in the low back and sacroiliac. Shoulders draw back towards the hips, crown of the head lengthens forward, your gaze is down at the floor. We'll take one more breath in here, and then exhale, fold forward. Good. From here, we're going to make our way into downward facing dog. So depending on where you are on your mat, maybe the hands come forward and or the feet come back. And we'll just start with the knees deeply bent and finding some movement. So wiggling around a little bit in any way that feels good to you. Maybe taking your hips side to side or straightening one leg and then the other. You can even roll forward and back with the body. And then eventually settling into some stillness, but still being active. So actively pressing into the hands, make sure your fingers are spread really wide and that most of the weight is in your thumb and forefingers. So navel to spine, lift the tailbone up and back. Again, don't lock the knees or the elbows. So micro bend in both at the very least. And the more you feel your low back grounding, or the more you feel this in your hamstrings, the more you should bend the knees. We'll take one more big breath in here. And then exhale, bring your knees to the ground. And then from here, we'll move through a few cat-cows. So as you inhale, your heart opens, your gaze draws up, the tailbone lifts. And then as you exhale, start to tuck your tailbone, drawing the navel in, broadening the back body towards the sky. And just continue moving with your breath, finding your own pace. And then with your next inhale, we'll meet in table, so finding that neutral spine. From here, we're going to extend the left leg back. So tuck your toes under. We're going to drop that left heel behind the right foot, kick your right foot out to the side, and then reach your left arm up towards the sky. And then from here, we're going to do big circles with that left arm. So start to sweep the left arm back towards your foot and then let it sweep across the floor in front of you. Inhale as you open through the front of the chest and reach up towards the sky. Again, exhale as it sweeps across the floor in front of you. Inhale to open. And then the next time you reach up, let's pause here. Draw the shoulders away from your ears. Ground through the outer edge of that left foot. Engage your core. Press your tailbone slightly forward. And then if you want to, lift that left leg. Flex the foot. This is sort of a half moon on the knee. Here you could take it a step further if you want to, and maybe bend the lifted leg and reach back to capture the foot, pressing the foot away from you. That's a nice quad stretch, but it also challenges us in our balance pose a little more. So then inhale, release that foot if you grabbed it. And then exhale, bring your left hand back to the mat. Keep that left leg lifted. Take it across your right leg so it comes to the floor behind you and off to your right, and then gaze over your right shoulder, look back at that left foot. Should feel this stretch in that left side body and outer left hip. And then with your next inhale, we'll lift that leg back behind us again, and then return to table, taking the knees back to the floor, okay? So moving through the other side now, we're gonna extend the right leg back, tuck the toes under, press back through the heel. Keep the hips level here, keep that navel drawing in, and just find that stretch in the calf and the hamstring, maybe rocking a little bit forward and back. There's a little drop of paint on the floor. Good, now drop that right heel behind the left foot. You can kick that left foot back behind you a little more, and then reach your right arm towards the sky. Okay. And then again, we're going to do some big circles just to get a little bit more into the shoulder joint. Keep your core engaged, keep the body stable. As you exhale, you're going to sweep that right arm across the body in front of you. Inhale, the chest opens as you reach towards the sky. And we'll do a couple more rounds here. And the next time you reach up, let's pause here. Draw shoulders away from the ears. Ground to the outer edge of that right foot. Again, draw navel to spine, press the tailbone forward slightly, and then option to lift the right leg. This lets us work on our balance a little bit. Also starts to build some strength in this leg. Now, if you want to, you can bend the knee, capture the foot, press the foot away from you. And then inhale, release the foot, come back to that half moon on the knee, And then as you exhale, we're gonna release the right hand down, but keep the right foot lifted. And then take it across that left leg, bring it to the floor, off to the left. Press back through the heel as you gaze over your left shoulder. So again, this brings a nice little stretch to that right side body and outer hip. And then inhale, bring it straight back behind you again, and then exhale, returning to table. Good. Now, planting the hands below the shoulders, spreading the fingers wide, tuck your toes under, and on an exhale, we're gonna float the knees off the floor an inch or so. Okay. So this works the core a little bit. Make sure the shoulders are drawing back towards the hips, the navel's drawing towards the spine. We're lengthening out through the crown of the head. And then with your next inhale, lift the hips, press back to downward facing dog. Take a few breaths here in your down dog, softening the face, relaxing the head and neck, but staying engaged through the hands and the arms, pressing your heart back towards your thighs. Always checking in with your breath. That's our key to staying present in our practice. And then with your next inhale, let's lift the right leg towards the sky. Exhale, bring right knee to right elbow, shifting forward to stack shoulders over wrists. Inhale, back to three-legged dog. Exhale, right knee to left elbow, so finding a little twist here. Inhale, back to three-legged dog. Exhale, knee to nose. Pause here with the shoulders stacked over the wrist. Press into the hands and try to lift your right leg as far from the floor as possible, creating some space between you and the mat. And then with your next exhale, as gracefully as you can, bring that right foot forward between the hands. So right knee should stack over the right ankle. Press back through that left heel. Engage the inner thighs. Draw navel to spine. And then we're going to sweep the arms back behind. So we're pressing down into that right foot. The navel draws in. That helps keep the hips aligned. We engage the inner thighs. So there's a lot of strength in the lower body. And then inhale, sweep the arms up towards the sky. Exhale, dropping the hips a little bit more, drawing shoulders down away from the ears. And then on your next exhale, we're going to step forward, lift that left knee, and then bring the foot down, hands to heart center. So finding Tadasana here, pausing for a moment or two, reconnecting with the breath. Now bring your hands to your hips. So here's where we really start working these muscles around the hips. Okay, so we're going to stabilize through the right side of the body. We're going to lift the left leg out to the side. So try not to kind of dump into that right hip. Okay, zip up that inner right thigh, draw navel to spine, reach up to the crown of your head. And then we're just going to do some lifts here out to the side. You'll feel this kind of on that outer left hip. We're going to do about 10 of these. If it's something you eventually practice at home, you can work up some more. And keep in mind, I can't count and talk at the same time. So that feels like 10. And then we're gonna lift back behind us. So again, really important here to engage the core, okay? The lift isn't gonna be very high. Okay, our glutes kind of get in the way, but stay really stable in that right leg. So about 10 here. And then we're gonna lift this leg up in front. And I want you to lift from the core. So it's not just this movement at the hip. You can really engage the core each time you lift the leg. And again, if you need a chair or a wall to help you with the stability, go ahead and find whatever you can. Props are our friends. So you probably feel this in the quads, but if you, again, really try to use the core more, it won't burn the quads so much. Okay, now from here, slowly, we're gonna sweep that left leg back. Start to bend the right knee, and as slowly and gracefully as you can, you're gonna step that left foot back. So we're coming back into this crescent lunge pose. So adjust your feet if you need to so that the right knee stacks over the ankle. Okay. Shoulders draw down away from your ears. Squeeze the low ribs together, draw the tailbone down. Feel this nice hip flexor stretch in that front left hip. Now this next piece could be a little tricky on sore knees. So keep that in mind and feel free to skip it. Okay, on your exhale, we're gonna bend that back knee. And we're just gonna bounce a little bit here. So now we're really gonna feel that in the quad. Keep the core engaged, the spine long. We're also building strength in this right thigh. Good. And then we're going to straighten both legs. On your exhale, now start to rebend that right leg, and we're going to step forward into a warrior three. Now there's some variations we can choose for our arms because this takes a lot of strength. Airplane, the arms is a little easier, or hands at heart center, or even hands on a block. Wherever you are, try to keep the hips level and that foot, lifted foot engaged. Stay connected to your breath. Stay rooted through that standing foot, navel to spine. On your next exhale, we're gonna release the hands to the earth, coming into a standing split here. Gaze back at that lifted foot. Make sure the toes are pointing straight down. That's gonna help level the hips. You can lift through that inner left thigh. And the leg doesn't have to be lifted very high. It can be down here. You can even keep it close to the floor in case you get a little wobbly. For more of a challenge, you could walk the hands in towards the standing foot, maybe even wrapping the hands behind the ankle. Good, and then with the hands on the mat in line with that standing foot, on your exhale, bend that right knee, plant the left foot back on the floor, and then step the right leg back to meet it, coming into plank. So we're gonna pause here in plank for several breaths. This is a great pose for building strength. Engage your core, press down into the hands, broaden the shoulders, lengthen from the heels to the crown of the head. And then shift forward a little bit. On your exhale, you can drop the knees if you'd like. Bend the elbows straight back. Lower all the way down to the mat. Untuck the toes. Keep your hands in line with your low ribs. Inhale, draw your heart forward, shoulders back, elbows hug in for cobra. And then exhale, release, bring your forehead to the floor. Press the tops of the feet into the mat. And we'll do that twice more. So inhale, draw the heart forward, shoulders back. Exhale, release. One more time, inhale, lift. Exhale, release. Inhale, push up and back to an extended child's pose. Breathe into that low back. If ever you get heated, it's helpful sometimes to exhale through the mouth. And with your next inhale, we'll make our way back to downward facing dog. Pressing the tailbone up and back. Taking a moment or two to wiggle if you need to before settling into your downward dog. And then with your next inhale, let's lift the left leg high. Exhale, left knee to left elbow as you shift forward, stacking shoulders over the wrists. Inhale, press back, three-legged dog. Exhale, left knee to right elbow. Inhale, press up and back. Exhale, knee to nose. Shoulders stacked over the hips, or over the wrists, rather. And then lift your body away from the floor. Create that space. And then with your next exhale, bring the foot forward between the hands for lunge. Make sure your left knee steps over the left ankle. We're active in that back leg, pressing back through the heel. And then engage the inner thighs, press down into that front foot. Draw navel to spine and sweep the arms back behind you. On your next breath in, reach the arms towards the sky. Coming into your crescent lunge, drawing shoulders down away from the ears. Squeeze low ribs together, drop tailbone down. And on your next exhale, we're gonna step into the front foot, lift the right knee. And then exhale, Tadasana. Hands at heart center. Close your eyes, take a moment here, and just bring your awareness to the stability in your body. And if you don't feel stable, ask yourself what you can do to invite more stability to the pose. Good. And then hands to hips. So we're gonna work that right side of the body, okay? So in our Tadasana, finding our stability, and then we're gonna take that right leg out to the side. Again, we don't wanna totally dump into this left side, okay? So zip up that inner left thigh, engage your core, maybe even keep your hands on your belly to remind you. And we're just gonna lift that leg out to the side about 10 times. Trying to keep the rest of the body as stable as possible. Right now, we're going to take that leg back behind. Again, it doesn't lift very high, and it's really important to keep that navel drawing in and the core engaged. That standing leg, of course, is working pretty hard. right? And then we're gonna bring this leg forward. You can soften the standing knee a little bit, but again, use the core. So draw that belly in every time you lift. Good. And then we're gonna slowly sweep that leg back behind, bend the standing leg, and as slowly and gracefully as you can, we're gonna step that right foot back, coming back to this crescent lunge. Drawing the tailbone down, feeling this big hip flexor stretch in the right leg, reaching the arms up towards the sky, shoulders drawing down away from the ears. Now again, this next part does work the knees a little bit, so take care of yourself, be mindful. We're gonna bend that back knee and just pulse a little bit. So really feeling this in that right quad, keeping the core strong and engaged. Good, and then straightening both legs. And then we're gonna step into that front foot and come into warrior three pose. So reaching the arms forward, lifting that back leg. If that's too difficult to keep the arms reaching forward, you can bring hands to heart center or an airplane or hands to the floor or blocks. Try to keep the hips level. Stay rooted through the standing foot. Invite a little ease and softness into the upper body. Remember our ABCDEs of yoga? Steadfastness and ease. So always inviting a little bit of softness, especially in the more challenging poses. Good, and then release the hands to the floor if they're not already. Coming into standing splits. Gaze back at your right foot. Make sure the toes are pointing straight down towards the floor. That helps keep the hips aligned and level. If you want to, you can walk the hands back closer to the standing foot or even taking the hands and wrapping them around the ankle. And then releasing the hands to the mat in line with that front foot, bending the front knee, and again, slowly stepping that right foot back to the mat. And then we'll sweep the left leg back to meet it, coming into our plank pose. And again, holding this for several breaths. Draw shoulder blades back towards the hips. Spread your fingers wide. Navel to spine. Breathe. If need be, you can drop a knee and then the other for a little extra support until you build up the strength to sustain this pose a little longer. It takes practice, just like everything. On your next exhale, you can drop the knees if you'd like. We'll lower down, come all the way to the floor. Keep your hands in line with the low ribs. Activate the legs, pressing the tops of the feet into the floor. And then inhale, draw your heart forward. Lift your head and chest, elbows hug in, shoulders draw back. Exhale, release. Inhale, lift. Exhale, release. Inhale, lift. And exhale, release. On your next breath in, push into the hands. Press yourself back to extended child's pose. Hips to heels, forehead resting on the mat. Find your breath. On your next inhale, make your way back to downward facing dog. Pressing the tailbone up and back. And then with your next inhale, gaze forward. And on your exhale, step, walk, or float to the top of your mat, bringing your feet to the outside of the hands, dropping the hips for Malasana. Okay. From here, I'm going to offer you a couple of options. I'll walk you through crow pose if you want to try practicing that. If you'd rather come into frog, let me just demonstrate that for you really quick. And if you have a hard floor, you might want to put a towel or blanket under one knee or turn sideways so that you've got the mat under your knees. And you'd bring the knees wide, toes turned out. And this is a hip opener. I didn't say we completely ignore those stretches, but just settling onto the elbows. And for those of us who want to try practicing crow, you'll bring the hands to the mat underneath the shoulders, so shoulder width apart. Your feet are still wide. Lift your hips, come onto your toes. Bring your knees into your armpits if you can, okay? And then just start by practicing leaning in to the upper arms with the shins, okay? So just kind of rocking forward and back is a good place to practice. And then if you feel like taking it further, keep trying to find the best position for you guys to see me. If you want to take it further, lean more into the upper arms, maybe lift one foot or both. Take your gaze slightly forward and start to drop your hips. If you're here, then you want to try to draw the navel in, squeeze the legs together, and lift, straighten the arms a little bit more. So again, frog would be the alternative pose. They're both hip openers. Crow is obviously working the arms a lot. And to really get that lift and stability in crow, you need to draw the navel in and use that core strength. But we built that up during practice, so it should be a piece of cake. All right, if you're in crow, if you're done practicing, bring the feet back to the mat. If you're in frog pose, sometimes coming out of that is tricky. That's why I kind of like the blanket on the hard floor. You can just draw the navel in and slide that knee back. We'll all come to seated. And that's actually just temporary as we come all the way down on our backs. So lay back and hug your knees into your chest and rock side to side. And then grab a hold of the feet for dead bug pose, okay? So if you can't quite reach your feet, you can grab the shins, the ankles, or even the back of the thighs, but your feet should be parallel towards the sky. And then you're gonna pull down on the feet with the hands as the feet press back into the hands. So it's an isometric, there's a lot of work going on in the legs. Try pressing your low back down into the mat. Good, and then you can roll side to side. Happy baby, extending one or both legs. And then hug the knees back in. And then keep the knees hugging in, but extend your arms out from the shoulders. So moving into a twist here with some additional core work. So on your exhale, you're going to start to lower your knees to the left. And just before they reach the floor, pause and suspend the movement and the breath for 1 count. And then on your inhale, ground that opposite shoulder, come back to center. Exhale, lower the knees to the other side. Pause and suspend the movement for 1 count. Inhale back to center. We'll exhale over to the left again. You can pause and suspend the breath for 1 or 2 counts. Maybe for an extra challenge, you can even straighten the legs. That really works the core. Good, and then we'll inhale back to center. Exhale to the right, pausing before you reach the floor, suspending the breath for 1 or 2 counts, maybe straightening the legs. And then ground that opposite shoulder as you inhale back to center. And then continue a few more on your own, suspending the breath and the movement for as long as you'd like, as long as you're not straining. Probably not more than 4 counts. And the next time you bring your knees over to the left, go ahead and let them come all the way to the floor. I'm just resting in a twist. Maybe bringing that left hand on top of the right knee. Another variation, if you'd like to try it, is to straighten that right leg, capturing the foot with the left hand. There might be another version of twist that you'd like to try. It's your practice. And then with your next inhale, coming back through center, taking the knees over to the right, and pausing there, resting in a twist. Any kind of twist that you'd like. On your next inhale, making your way back to center, hugging the knees in. And then release the feet on the floor, feet hip width apart. And your feet just a little bit out of reach from your fingertips. Arms alongside the body. On your inhale, press into the feet, squeeze the glutes and lift your hips towards the sky for bridge pose. We're going to move dynamically. So exhale, release the hips down. Inhale, press into the feet, squeeze the glutes. And exhale, release. Inhale, squeeze the glutes, lift. Try not to let the knees splay apart. Let's do a few more. And the next time you lift, we're gonna hold there. So roll the shoulders underneath the back, maybe interlace the fingers if that's successful. Press into the big toe mound, squeeze the glutes, lift the hips a little higher, and then gently press the back of the head into the floor to open the front of the throat slightly. The chest is moving towards your chin. You want a clear path for the breath. Take one more big breath in, lift the hips a little higher. And then as you exhale, release the hands, take the shoulders out from under you, and slowly lower back down. Good, now cactus your arms on the floor, step your feet mat width apart, and windshield wiper your knees side to side. And then hug the knees in one more time, wrapping your arms around the legs, giving yourself a nice big hug. Lift your head up towards your knees, curling into a tight little ball. And then inhale, release, and stretch out for Shavasana. Let the palms turn up, shoulders roll underneath the back, feet fall softly outward. Close your eyes. Take a deep, expansive breath in, and then exhale through the mouth. Just allow yourself to sink in a little heavier on your mat. Giving yourself permission to completely surrender. Your drishti, your focal point, is your breath. Not changing it, just watching it. Feel the nourishment and vitality in the body as you draw the breath in, breathing into every nook and cranny. Every time you exhale, you relax a little bit deeper. Start to bring your awareness back into your body, inviting small movements, such as wiggling your fingers and your toes, your ankles and wrists. And then reaching your arms up overhead, finding one more long stretch, lengthening through one side and then the other, and then both. And then drawing the knees in towards your chest as you make your way onto one side in a fetal position. Supporting your head with your upper arm. Resting here, savoring these last few moments of peace and calm. And then keep your eyes closed, move slowly and mindfully as you make your way back to seated. We'll meet with hands at heart center in Anjali Mudra. Shoulders drawing back, crown of the head lifting, thumbs at the heart. Thank you all so much for coming to your mat this morning, joining me in Zoom land. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Namaste.